Welcome into the Rumbles of Red. My name's Trevor Steinbacher. I am your host. If you're on here with YouTube Live, thank you for joining us. Feel free, interact in the chat. We will try to interact with you back and forth, answer questions. We're going to speak a lot about Dynasty football today because we have a special guest with us this evening. I'm pumped to have him join us, Tyler Karp, a writer from DynastyFootball.com. And he's also the co-host of the Dynasty Duo podcast. Tyler, thanks for jumping on here. How's it going?
It's great. I've had a pretty great day. Just creating my content. My pod dropped earlier today. I was on the Trade Addicts pod this week. Been writing a lot of good articles for DLF. I had today an article about how to manage an old contending Dynasty roster dropped. So if anyone's interested in that, go check it out. I had one about Gabriel Davis yesterday. So it's always a lot of content coming. And yeah, everything's going great.
That's exciting. I'm gonna have to pick your brain offline more about Gabriel Davis. I think I love him for next year, but I still question myself. But let's start tonight. Let's start tonight with some recent events in the NFL offseason. We know when we're creating content, it's all about what's going on right now. But there was trades earlier this offseason that ideally probably has effect on Dynasty football and our fantasy teams. We'll start with the first one. Jared Goff was traded to Detroit in exchange for Matthew Stafford. On the NFL side, there's a lot more implications. But for fantasy, that's what we're looking at, quarterback for quarterback. I think Jared Goff is a downgrade to Matt Stafford for Detroit, but I wanted to get your reaction on how does this trade affect the fantasy relevant players, the DeAndre Swifts, the TJ Hawkinsons, and even Kenny Galladay, should he still be a Lion next year? How does Goff being their quarterback affect them?
I mean, it's a huge downgrade. Jared Goff is he's fine. We'll see how good he is without Sean McVay whispering in his ear. I don't think it's going to be very good. You saw how Jared Goff was as a rookie with Jeff Fisher. He sucked. He was awful. And then, he goes to Sean McVay, whispers, the offense in his ear. But the second that anything goes off script or anything goes not the way he's expecting, all of a sudden he looks like he has no idea what to do. I don't know if he's going to be able to succeed with Dan Campbell there. Anthony Lynn is he's okay as an offensive coordinator, but he's not very creative. I'm not sure that he's going to be the one to unlock Jared Goff. So yeah, I mean, it's a huge downgrade. I don't know how much it's going to affect all of the players. I mean, he did like to check down. I'm not too worried about DeAndre Swift personally. If the offense sucks, it's going to take away a little bit of his touchdown upside, but he's probably the one I would worry about the least. TJ Hawkinson, I mean, he did use the tight ends. The problem in LA was that there were two tight ends. They kind of cannibalized each other. If you morph the two into one player, or when it was one player for Everett at times early in 2019, and then Higbee down the stretch of 2019, you actually had a fantasy viable tight end there. I'm not really too worried about TJ Hawkinson, but I would take any receivers that they have there and just throw them in the trash. Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp had a very possession-style skill set. You didn't see them chucking the ball downfield. Last time I checked, Detroit doesn't have a receiver like that, anyone like that. They just signed Tyrone Williams to an incentive-laden deal, which makes no sense. Tyrone Williams, maybe he still has some gas left in the tank, but he's a horrible fit with Jared Goff. You saw how Jared Goff used Sammy Watkins in 2019. Spoiler, he didn't use him because Jared Goff cannot throw the ball down the field to save his life. So that signing makes no sense. If Quintez Cephas, who, again, not really a possession receiver, not sure what he brings to the table, another terrible fit with Jared Goff. Kenny Galladay, I feel like could succeed anywhere, but I'm not sure he's going to be there. They're probably going to franchise tag him and then try to trade him away. So that's just kind of my thoughts on Detroit. Not very positive. I don't really have anything good to say about Jared Goff. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at the moment.
Yeah, I'm hopeful for fantasy value. I'm hopeful that Galladay can move on and find a fit somewhere he can be used. He's still I think he's 28 maybe.
Turned
He seems
27 in
relatively
November.
27. Okay,
Oh,
so
yeah.
I knew he wasn't. He's not to that old age of wide receiver quite yet. I think he can still be successful if he can find that right fit. But let's talk about the other side of things. And you've mentioned Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. Woods top 15 this year and wide receiver. I think Kupp was top 30. They've both been pretty solid in fantasy football for us. But now they get a guy who's thrown for 5,000 yards before in a season, and Matt Stafford. Do you think that Stafford could open up, and do you see Kupp and Woods rising in your rankings because of Stafford?
Well, I mean, sure, a little bit. I definitely would prefer to have Stafford than Goff. Like I said, I don't really have anything good to say about Goff. So Stafford's definitely an upgrade. I'm not sure that I'm seeing a massive improvement. I mean, how much higher do you want to rank him? Robert Woods, I mean, he's been a borderline wide receiver 1, solid wide receiver 2 for the last few years. Cooper Kupp, kind of the same thing. A little bit more volatile, a little more dependent on the touchdown production. Yeah, I mean, they are what they are. I don't know where I'm going to rank them for 2021. Probably going to have to hedge on both, rank them both in the wide receiver 2 range. Probably having Woods ahead, although I'd probably prefer Kupp in Dynasty because he's a little bit younger. And also Kupp is a possession receiver, which I think is going to age a little bit better than Woods. Woods is not a burner, but, Woods plays in the X position, really. So if you look at it that way.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit more worried about him in Dynasty, but yeah, Stafford's undoubtedly an upgrade. There's no way to spin it as anything else. He boosts, I would say, slightly the value of both players relatively equally. I can't tease out any way that I can't create a narrative of why Stafford would boost Kupp more than Woods or Woods more than Kupp. I think Absolutely. He just boosts them about equally.
And there's another guy there in LA that I think might have an opportunity. I wanted to get your thoughts on it, and that's Van Jefferson. Josh Reynolds being a free agent this year, he's going to be moving on from LA. But Van Jefferson, I mean, he was the second-round pick out of Florida last year. Does he have an opportunity there now that potentially they spread the ball out a little bit more?
No. I mean, no. I would say no, unfortunately. That team, you're going to have a 3-pronged offense. You're going to have Kupp, you're going to have Woods, you're going to have Akers. Everyone else, I could take it or leave it. I think that back up. Yeah, you could take it or leave it. With the other weapons, you're going to have, some people are saying that Tyler Higbee is now going to become a tight end 1. I made that mistake last year. I'm very sorry. I touted Tyler Higbee as a fantasy value. I was wrong. Don't fall for it now. Van Jefferson, some people are thinking that we're going to see a return to 2018 where they supported Kupp, Woods, and Cooks. I wouldn't count on that. I think that they want to run the ball. I think that they want to get enough carries that Cam Akers, even at only a 70% touch share, 75% touch share, is getting 18, 19 carries a game. As we know, Matthew Stafford loves throwing to the running back. Some people think, oh, Matthew Stafford, deep chucker, that deep thrower. But look at what he did with Theo Riddick in his career. He supported Theo Riddick as a borderline RB1, certainly a solid RB2 throughout in PPR throughout his time there. So he loves incorporating a receiving running back into his offense. I would look more to see if they can get Akers and someone also maybe Henderson involved in the passing game. I think there'll be enough to go around, and I think that Higbee and Jefferson are at best the fourth option, and I don't even know which of the two is going to be the fourth option. Yeah. So I would say that there's just I wouldn't try to mine value there personally.
I don't want to take up too much time on the Rams, but
that's a good question.
You mentioned the running game, and you talked about them in the passing game too. But I would also believe, absolutely as they start, if they can throw the ball a little bit better, and defenses can actually expect them to be throwing the ball with Stafford, I would say it would improve the running game, and we know that's what they want do is run the ball and be successful with 2 or 3 running backs as we saw this year. But would you agree with that? They want to.
I think so. I think so. Cam Akers is a 3-down back. He is a threat in the passing game. If you looked at the Rams when they were succeeding in 2017 and 2018, Jared Goff threw the ball to Todd Gurley all the time because he was a threat in the receiving game. When they did play action, people had to account for Gurley as a receiving threat out of the backfield. So I expect them to do the same with Stafford. He's far better quarterback than Goff. He should be able to execute that scheme. Cam Akers is an excellent running back. So if he sees lighter fronts, remember that Cam Akers at Florida State he had horrible offensive line, saw stacked fronts all the time. Last year, the Rams offensive line, I mean, it was okay. I don't know. It certainly wasn't great. But if he can see some lighter fronts, I think Cam Akers will torch those lighter fronts. So yes, I think Stafford will improve the entire offense. Just take everything and raise it up a little bit.
It's exciting for the Rams. Let's move on for the Rams. We got some St. Louis fans out there, so they're probably tired of hearing about Rams already.
Yeah, I feel bad.
We will. Let's move on to the other. There was another big trade this offseason. You know, most people know already by now, of course. Carson Wentz is now a Colt. How does this impact? It obviously has impact to Wentz and Hurts. But how do you rank the two now that they're not on the same team anymore?
Sure. I mean, you want to just know where I rank them? I can just tell you that.
Sure, that works too.
Yeah. So if we include, it's a little difficult to think about it. Let's include the rookies, I guess. So if we include the rookie quarterbacks, I have Hurts at quarterback 16, just behind Baker Mayfield. And just before Stafford, actually. And then I have Wentz lower. Wentz will come in either quarterback 19 or quarterback 20. Depends on how I feel about Zach Wilson, who I guess I will have probably ahead of him. So it'll probably could also have Trey Lance ahead of him. That's still up in the air. So he'll come in somewhere between 19 and 21, depending on whether Wilson and Lance come in ahead of him. But I have him at 17 among veterans. Lawrence and Fields will certainly be ahead of Wentz. And then Jones will almost certainly be behind. And then Wilson and Lance, it's really depending on landing spot, whether they're going to pass Wentz or not.
Absolutely. Who, out of that trade, out of both teams, who do you think who benefited the most by their trade that's not a quarterback, whether it's a running back or wide receiver or just a team?
I mean, I'm not sure that there are a lot of, I guess Jonathan Taylor, just because they have a competent quarterback there now, to make sure that the offense doesn't completely suck. I'm not really a fan of anything on either team at all. I think Jalen Hurts is going to do to the Eagles exactly what Lamar Jackson did to the Ravens. I think you can take all of those passing weapons and just toss them in the dumpster. I really don't want a wide receiver to go there. Some people are saying, oh, we want Jamar Chase to be drafted to the Eagles. Not me. I don't think so. That's not what I want. I don't think that Jalen Hurts is great NFL quarterback. I think he'll be great for producing fantasy points for himself, but he's not going to support multiple passing weapons. I think he can execute passes short to Dallas Goedert. I'm not excited for Jalen Reagor at all. I don't want a receiver to go there. And we know that running quarterbacks do not dump the ball off to their running backs. They just don't do it. You know, that's what we were so worried about the start of 2020 with Tyrod Taylor and Austin Eckler. We were worried that he wasn't going to dump off the ball. He didn't do it. And we've had that same concern with Lamar Jackson in the past. He doesn't throw to J.K. Dobbins nearly as much as he should because Dobbins is a very capable receiving back. And we know that Miles Sanders excels in the receiving game, but if Hurts is not going to deliver him the ball, it doesn't matter that he's good in the receiving game. Opportunity matters more than talent at the running back position. So I'm not happy really for anyone other than Hurts on the Eagles. And then on the Colts, I guess the receivers get a boost, but then did you watch Carson Wentz play in 2020? I mean, he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. He was under pressure every time. And yes, you could say it was the offensive line's fault, but there were open receivers. He just didn't deliver the ball. He didn't throw it. Why? I have no idea. He threw the ball sometimes. There were no receivers anywhere near where he was throwing it. He threw into double coverage many times. And the Colts, as of this moment, I don't know what you think of Michael Pittman, but I don't think that Michael Pittman is a dominant alpha wide receiver who's just, he can throw the ball and hope for the best. There's no Julio Jones on that team. There's no AJ Brown, DK Metcalf. They don't have that type of player who you can just throw the ball and hope. You know, he does that with Michael Pittman or Paris Campbell, it's going to be a disaster. So, I don't really have a lot good to say about these weapons on those teams. Outside of, maybe the running backs on the Colts. Wentz can throw it to the running back, sort of.
Benjamin asks here, does Miles Sanders benefit or hurt from Hurts taking over? Does it really affect him one way or the other? Or
I said that I think that Miles Sanders needs to be involved in the passing game in order to be the Miles Sanders that we wanted,
Absolutely.
Right? And Miles Sanders is a good running back. He's good between the tackles. He's fine. But where he excels is in the receiving game. But if Jalen Hurts is not going to deliver the ball, it doesn't matter that he's good in the receiving game if he doesn't get the targets. He needs to get the targets. We know that he's an explosive receiver. He was comped to Alvin Kamara coming out for a reason. Because that's what he is. He can be explosive on limited touches and excel in the receiving game, but if he doesn't get the work, we won't see it. So no, I'm extremely concerned. Some people are excited for it, but I'm not one of those people. I'm very, very concerned.
I wasn't a big Miles Sanders truther before going into 2020. A lot of people were pushing him way up in the first round. I just touted. I didn't see it yet. I hadn't seen it for a full season. Not anything he's done wrong. It was just I was kind of worried about, is he going to be able to handle the whole workload all season long?
And he can't do that.
But he did fine. I mean, he's not a bad fantasy
not a workhorse
running back, but he's definitely not a workhorse there.
But the player is good. Unfortunately, his situation is not good. He needs to be, put him in the Saints offense, and I think you would see him be not Alvin Kamara, but I think he could be 80% of Alvin Kamara. Whereas in the Eagles offense, he just does not fit what they want to do at all. They need to complement someone like Jalen Hurts. You need like a bowling ball running back, someone who just, takes those yards, is aggressive, can run the option, that kind of thing. I just see Sanders as so valuable in the receiving game, and those skills are just going to be wasted on that team.
Well, nobody likes to hear that about Sanders, and also I just think back at going into last year with Pittman and Rager. They weren't the hottest names at wide receiver for rookies, but they were talked about. They were talked about a lot, and now it kind of like it's amazing how 1 year and with changing quarterback, it does change a lot of things. Which I mean, Pittman had Phillip Rivers, so it's not like he had a great quarterback to begin with.
Over Rivers.
He's an upgrade, but he's not the upgrade that you were hoping for. I don't think as
not
Pittman or manager who has him. Well, let's talk about some free agents here. I just want to kind of get your thoughts on, maybe it's just where you want them to land, maybe it's where you think they would land. If you're in the chat, let us know where you think these guys might land. We'll start with running back, and we'll start with Aaron Jones, top 5 fantasy running back this year. I think he ended up 4th in rushing in 2020. He's been rumored to potentially have that franchise tag on him. Do you think he ends up in Green Bay, or where would you like to see him go?
I don't think he's going to end up with Green Bay. They could apply the franchise tag. It just seems like they want to go in a different direction. I think that they're going to retain Jamal Williams on a cheap deal, maybe a 2-year, $7 million deal, which I think, and then roll with Williams and Dillon as their backfield. So I think they're going to move in a different direction. That's where I would want to see Aaron Jones land. It's got to be Arizona, right? I mean, imagine him running with Kyler Murray. Imagine him in that offense. I think it would just be amazing. I mean, that would be a perfect fit. It is a little bit less likely after they spent the money on JJ Watt, but we can dream. And I think it's not just Aaron Jones, any running back, whoever goes to Arizona, because, I've said this on other pods, Chase Edmonds is not a starting running back in this league. He is a backup. You saw what happened when he tried to get the workhorse role. He got hurt. It happened multiple times. He cannot carry a workhorse role. So he's just a backup. They need a starter. And whoever goes there, whoever fills that role is going to be fantasy gold. You're going to want that guy. And I mean, I could just say everyone should go there. But I really think that he's the piece that they need. They have a star wide receiver in DeAndre Hopkins. They have a decent wide receiver too in Christian Kirk. They need a tight end and they need a running back. If they just had a tight end and a running back, they would have a complete offense. So yeah, I think that Aaron Jones would go a long way toward making that offense a lot better.
That would make all the free Aaron Jones guys very happy, and I would be happy as well. And I have some shares of AJ Dillon, so just hearing that Aaron Jones might be moving on,
he's gone.
That's why I thought about getting AJ Dillon last year, was to sit on him for a year and see if he couldn't be the starter in 2021.
You want a pro tip?
Absolutely, that's what we're here for.
Pro tip from me: second Aaron Jones goes and signs somewhere else, sell AJ Dillon. AJ Dillon is not actually good, or he might be, but we don't know that. People are just going to assume that AJ Dillon is going to be the workhorse or lead starter, and we know that the Packers you're going to see Jamal Williams out there, whatever amount it is, way more than we want him to be there. We're not going to be happy with AJ Dillon. He's not going to get any work. He's exactly, but AJ Dillon, unlike Aaron Jones, is incompetent in the passing game. Yeah. All right, we've never seen him succeed. He didn't do anything in the passing game in college. We didn't really see him succeed in the passing game last year. I think that Jamal Williams is fine in the passing game. He's probably better at that than AJ Dillon, certainly at pass blocking. So I just think that we'll be very, very disappointed. So the second Aaron Jones moves on, go sell AJ Dillon for the increased price. Just get rid of him and take your profit.
I'll be ready. Well, if Aaron Jones today in our podcast, we're saying Aaron Jones is going to Arizona. That means Kenyon Drake is not going back, which I think we all kind of assume he's not going back anyways. This is a guy that raised in redraft draft boards last year. I drafted him multiple leagues. I was high on him going into, and he doesn't end up as an RB1. Definitely does not bring back the value of the draft capital I used on him. But now he's looking for a new team as a free agent. Where would you like to see a guy like Kenyon Drake land?
I mean, I think that there's a possibility he does end up back in Arizona if they don't get there first. He's not their first choice. But I'm not sure that Arizona is going to wait until the draft to address the running back situation. I think that they're going to try to sign Aaron Jones. But if they don't, I think that they could use Drake. I don't think Drake's going to have a big market. I think that Arizona is actually willing to pay him more than anyone else. So, but let's say that Arizona gets taken by Aaron Jones. So that's off the table. Where could Kenyon Drake go? There aren't a lot of good spots for him. I mean, he's a starter, but he's not really a difference maker. There's a hole in Pittsburgh, but they don't tend to sign. They're not going to sign a free agent running back. If they were going to do that, they would just re-sign James Conner. I don't really see Kenyon Drake as a solution to their problem. So, where could he go? He would make an improvement in but he can't really go back to Miami. He could, but he probably won't. The Jets have nobody. He could sign a 1-year deal with the Jets. I would hate the landing spot, but the Jets have cap room and they have nobody. So, we're talking about realistic and maybe not our favorite, but that is an option. They need a running back and have the space to sign one. But yeah, there aren't a lot of good landing spots. I think anyone who has Kenyon Drake in a dynasty league should be praying that he goes back to Arizona, because I really think if he doesn't, his fantasy value is mostly it's not going to be good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that I would agree that if he goes somewhere else, he could just be more almost in that complimentary role and more of a, if he gets, say San Francisco doesn't need running backs, but that's the type of.
They're not going to do that.
They have like 3 complimentary running backs. Like I could see him doing something to that matter where it's just going to be a running back by committee. It doesn't matter what down or which drive it is. They're just going to put one of the 2 guys in there and they're going to run it. It's going to happen. That's what I think Drake doing.
It's hard to think of a team that's going to pay Kenyon Drake.
Yeah.
Because he's going to cost what do you think? $4 or $5 million? But why would you pay Kenyon Drake $4 or $5 million when you can just draft a 3rd round pick for the same thing? Like, it has to be a team that's about to win, is really, really close, that just needs a running back to push them over the edge, or someone like the Jets who has so much cap space. But there just aren't that many teams. The Bills, maybe, like I said. I mean, he's better than Singletary or Moss, I guess.
We could probably spend an hour on the Bills running backs.
Yeah, we could. I mean, it's also possible. Another thing that could happen is that like the Atlanta Falcons could sign Drake and then still draft someone, but they're in such they're in cap hell. So I really think it's Arizona, or we're not, whatever it is, we're not going to be happy with it otherwise.
Absolutely. And the last running back here, you did mention Pittsburgh's not going to be picking up a free agent running back. They've already reported they're moving on from James Conner as well. Do you think James Conner has a starting role somewhere, and where would you like that to be?
I don't. I don't think James Conner has a starting role. I used to, but I think that he's going to be in a committee. I think that the best case scenario, well, there really is no good scenario. I don't like his prospects at all. I think that what's likely to happen to him is he signs a cheap deal somewhere and he just kind of gets supplanted by a rookie running back. Similar to Drake, I could see Atlanta signing James Conner on the cheap and then drafting, a Travis Etienne or a Javonte Williams to eventually, form a committee early on and then eventually in, year 2, just be their running back. But no, I don't see James Conner having a backfield to himself. Hopefully, though, he signs somewhere where he's a committee back and not just a backup. For example, someone's going to sign in New York and be the Giants and be Saquon's backup. That's guy's just a handcuff. Someone's going to sign in Carolina and be CMC's backup. We're not going to want that person. Someone's going to sign in Houston and back up David Johnson. We're not going to want anyone in Houston, so we're certainly not going to want that player. So, like, there are places that are going to sign. Maybe the Chargers. James Conner that would be terrible, but imagine if he's still whatever James Conner is. He's a massive upgrade over the failure that was Josh Kelly or the 3 years of Justin Jackson. So I do think that signing James Conner to like a cheap deal would improve their offense. So, but again, we're not going to want him if he signs there.
Absolutely. Well, let's move on to some wide receivers here. Talk to some people that, talk about a couple of guys that teams will want. I believe they'll be wanting them anyways. We'll start with Allen Robinson. Obviously probably one of the hotter names in the industry right now for NFL and fantasy football. Everybody knows how talented this guy is. He's never had an above average quarterback, at least in my opinion. He hasn't been able to play with much there. Do you think he moves on from Chicago and finds that great quarterback that'll elevate his game even more?
Unfortunately, I don't at this point. Everything that I've been hearing leads me to believe that the Bears are going to use the franchise tag on Allen Robinson. Yeah. I don't see why they wouldn't, really. They're going to use it. And Allen Robinson, even more so than Kenny Golladay, is too valuable to just let go for nothing. He'll have a trade market, and they can't really afford the franchise tag salary, but it's not that high for a receiver of Robinson's caliber. So I expect them to use the franchise tag on him, and then we'll see where it goes with a trade. But I'm I don't think that he's going to hit the free agency market.
You said both of these names right as Molly's comment came through. Do you think the Colts could get, doesn't sound like Robinson, but do you think they could get a guy like Golladay?
Well, I think they could trade for Robinson or Golladay, but I expect both teams to use the franchise tags to at least get some compensation in return. The Bears more so, because the Bears really are they need to fix the quarterback situation, but their defense is about to cap out, if that makes sense. They're going to need to pay all of these guys, and they don't have the cash to do it. So if they can somehow get Deshaun Watson, they would instantly be contenders. So unfortunately, they can't let Allen Robinson go for nothing. They need to get something back for him if they're going to trade him and start a rebuild, or he's going to be part of their contending plans. So if the Colts would be interested, unfortunately, I think Robinson's going to cost even more on the trade market than Golladay. I think Golladay could be had for a second rounder. I don't think Galladay's proven quite as much as Robinson. I think Robinson's a far, far superior player. Plus, he also wasn't hurt all of last year. I think Robinson might be worth a late first-round pick, and I don't see anyone giving that up. So, Golladay I like on the Colts because that would actually be perfect because they'd have two outside receivers and then Campbell in the slot. Would be a pretty good offense. Robinson,
if Wentz can find him.
Well, that is a problem. Robinson, I just don't. I think he's going to unfortunately end up being stuck in Chicago, which could be fortunate if they get Deshaun Watson. If they get Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson or something, then this could be fortunate. But as of now, that looks very, very unfortunate.
And he's been successful even with the quarterbacks.
Yes.
I could if Watson goes there, his top 10 value I feel like could just skyrocket potentially to top
he
five,
would be a top 5
3
redraft.
Really just be a dominant wide receiver out there.
He would be. I think that he has the talent to be a top 3 fantasy wide receiver if he gets the right quarterback. But unfortunately I see that as unlikely at this moment.
Well, let's talk about Watson's number 1 receiver this year, Will Fuller. I hope you said it earlier. Hopefully nobody ends up in Houston right now. Hopefully he doesn't either.
Yeah, he's gone.
He had a relatively healthy season finally. He does get cut short, with the suspension, but season high or career highs with 8 touchdowns, over 800 yards. I think he ended up 870, somewhere in that range. I felt like he succeeded as that number 1 wide receiver. I don't believe he is a number 1 wide receiver moving forward on NFL teams. I see him as a great complement. Opposite of an alpha receiver, similar how he was with DeAndre Hopkins. But where would you like to see him land in 2021?
So Houston's already said that they're not going to use the franchise tag on Fuller. I don't think he's worth a franchise tag salary. So I'm not surprised that they're not going to use the tag on him. So he will be an unrestricted free agent. There are a lot of good choices. He was linked to the Packers last year. That would be a good choice, complimenting Devontae Adams as the downfield threat in that offense. Aaron Rodgers has had a history of supporting multiple passing game weapons. So I'd be totally fine with Fuller going there. Some other options. I would have said Arizona, oddly, reuniting with DeAndre Hopkins. I'm not a big believer in Christian Kirk. So if instead they chose to add a wide receiver 2 ahead of him instead of a tight end to upgrade their offense, I would have liked that. Unfortunately, with the Watt signing, I see that as now a lot less likely. I don't know if they're going to have the money to make a big splash on Will Fuller, but I would have liked that in the past. Yeah. Other than that, there are some landing spots where he would fit that would not be good for fantasy. The Bears might need a receiver if they can't re-sign Allen Robinson. The Washington football team, they have Terry McLaurin and nothing else really. So he would be a great fit there, provide that downfield threat to Terry McLaurin's, alpha receiver presence. A lot of teams don't have cap room that need receivers. So we can rule out teams like the Eagles and the Saints who would need a wide receiver too. They can't possibly afford him. So yeah, I named a few teams. I mean, I'd love to see him go to the Chiefs. Now that would be, I mentioned it offhand. The Chiefs cap situation isn't awful. Imagine Imagine an offense with Patrick Mahomes as quarterback, with Tyreek Hill, Will Fuller, and Travis Kelce. Try to stop that. Try to stop that offense. So selfishly, I'd love that, but I think that that's unlikely. But that would be the number one destination, of course.
I would see them, no problem. I don't know. There's talks about them trying to re-sign or wanting Sammy Watkins back. I don't know. It feels like window dressing. It really does. It's like, let's be nice to you and let's say nice things about you, but at the end of the day, we're not going to re-sign you. That's what it seems like.
Also, three more destinations, all in the AFC East, none of which are that great. The Jets they're apparently considering releasing Jamison Crowder, which would leave them with Denzel Mims and nothing. So they have a massive void at the receiver position for whether it's Darnold, Fields, or Wilson, whatever they're going to do. They have cap room. So I don't think that's a great destination unless Fields is the quarterback, but that's an option. And then there's the Dolphins. I don't think Preston Williams is not it. And they have a lot of cap room too. So they have room to add someone to supplant Williams and even compete with Devontae Parker for the number one role there. And then the Patriots, of course, which would be a terrible landing spot as of this moment, have nobody. Oh, sorry. No. They have N'Keal Harry. I totally, no, I didn't actually forget about him, but I might as well have because
we should forget about him.
He's very forgettable. He's contributed nothing in his his unfortunate time in the NFL to this moment. So he could go there. But again, similar to Washington, I think we would really dislike that landing spot.
Harry feels like one of those guys that we continue to try to make happen. Like, maybe this year.
Nobody tries. Nobody tries.
It felt like at the beginning, it was like, maybe this year will be the year. It's his third year. He'll do it. It's like, there's not a quarterback there either that's going to throw the ball enough. It's just they're not going to do it. So I did see here Benjamin asked about Fuller going to Tennessee, just a team you didn't mention. Do you have any thoughts on that one?
It's unlikely. It's unlikely. If they can't afford to retain Corey Davis, how are they going to afford Fuller? I think Fuller's going to cost more than Davis, not less. I think Fuller brings more to the offense than Davis is. Davis is competent he never should have been the number 5 pick, right? I think we can accept that. But Davis is competent at a lot of things, but he's not a game breaker. He's not special. He doesn't do any one thing that we're like, we need Corey Davis. Whereas I think a team might look at Fuller and be like, all right, this brings a new dimension to the offense. So if Tennessee can't even afford to retain Davis, they're not going to be able to afford to sign Will Fuller. So as much as that's a great idea, I don't think that's going to happen.
It would be fun to see with A.J. Brown and Will Fuller.
It would be a great fit. I just cap situation just doesn't. I would rather see them try to re-sign both Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith rather than spending extra money on Will Fuller.
Well, one last wide receiver here, Chris Godwin. He was a little bit underwhelming this year after that phenomenal year last year he had. Do you think he ends up back in Tampa Bay, or where would you rather see him?
I don't really think Godwin's worth talking about. They said that Tampa Bay said that they're going to use the franchise tag if they can't reach a long-term deal before the window ends on March 9th. So he's not
right around the corner.
Yeah, he's not hitting the open market. So he'll be there. I think it's more of a question if they're going to re-sign Antonio Brown, which I expect them to, but they're not going to have anything more than the minimum salary to get him. Luckily for them, I think that Brown has so worn out his welcome in the rest of the league that nobody else is going to want to sign him.
Yeah.
So
only teams with Tom Brady on them want Antonio Brown.
Somehow Tom Brady is just the Antonio Brown whisperer. I don't know how he pulls that off, but he has some sort of magic touch there. But yeah,
living with him at one point or something.
I don't know. Yeah, it's crazy. Somehow Brady's just that different. I don't know what it is, but he's defeated time. He's defeated Antonio Brown's craziness. So I don't know, but yeah, Chris Godwin's not going anywhere.
All right. If you're still in the chat here, we're here with Tyler of DLF. He's a Dynasty writer for DynastyLeagueFootball.com. We're going to talk a little bit, dive into some Dynasty questions here for you, Tyler. And if you're in the chat, if you have Dynasty questions, send them in. We'll try to answer them as we go. You've recently put out an article called 10 Quick Dynasty Tips. I know it's behind a paywall, so I'm not going to ask. I don't want you to dig into everything there, but can you give the listeners one of the quick tips today?
Sure. Have fun. Dynasty's supposed to be fun. If you're not having fun, do something that makes you have more fun. If that means don't play Dynasty anymore, I'll miss you. But if it's not fun for you, don't do it. Like, this is supposed to be a hobby. Like, this is supposed to be fun. Play in leagues that are fun for you. Don't play with people you hate. Don't play in formats you don't like. Like, I know that sounds really dumb, but if you're not having fun playing, you're probably not going to play very well either. So that's what I would say. And also, go subscribe to DLF. I know. This is someone just promoting their work, whatever. But no, I mean, I was a customer there since 2018, way longer than I've been a writer. I just started a month ago. And I can honestly say that they're the best Dynasty site. They have everything. I've learned recently, they have a lot of tools that I didn't even know existed that you can see in my articles if you subscribe. I'm learning how to use them, like a player stats tool, a snap counts tool, splits tool. This is tools and spreadsheets and numbers are not really my area of expertise, but I'm learning. I always want to be able to provide better content for my readers and followers and everyone listening. So yeah, I would say it's worth the subscription.
Absolutely. I've spent, $50 on worse things than a year's worth of Dynasty content. So
that's like,
that's a year. That's a year's worth.
Yeah. So that's like $4 a month.
I probably lost that on a Sunday playing daily or something. So let's.
I'm bad. I'm not good at daily at all.
I've definitely done it. And you can see I have Tyler's direct link in the description. So go ahead and get on Dynasty League Football and subscribe. Absolutely. Let's talk some more Dynasty stuff, and let's go to startup drafts. That's the big thing right now. If you're in the Twitter world, a lot of people are just talking about startup drafts. This is kind of the time of year you start to get a feel for where next year's ADPs and those kind of things are rolling. If you were to have a startup draft right now, one quarterback league, who would be your 1.01 and why would you have them at number one?
Oh, are we talking about a startup, like the startup and
just
one
Dynasty? Dynasty, yeah, one QB. You're drafting the first draft pick off the board.
I mean, I'm still taking Christian McCaffrey, right? I mean, he provides game, and I learned this recently using the DLF tools. I mean, he provides game-breaking fantasy upside that no other player provides. He just scores 5 to 6 more points than anyone else per game. You can't find that anywhere else. I know he's a little bit older than Jonathan Taylor or even a year older than Saquon Barkley, but you're going to be getting a few years of Christian McCaffrey, who is a game-breaking, cheat code in fantasy. So that's why he's still my 101.
Absolutely. And Chiefs fans were reminded of that when he came back from injury and just torched them.
He did.
And I mean, it was just
he torched everyone. He was great in the games he played.
He reminds you so quickly of why he is so dominant in fantasy, because he is all over. Imagine
if he had a quarterback upgrade. Look at what the quarterbacks he's played with the last couple of years. He started his career with Cam Newton. Remember what I said about mobile quarterbacks not dumping off to the running back? Cam Newton did it for Christian McCaffrey, but not as much as he should have. Mm-hmm. And then he played in 2019 with a mixture of Kyle Allen.
Was that the Kyle Allen year?
Corpse of Newton for a couple of games. And then this year, Teddy Bridgewater, not my favorite. So hopefully they can get a quarterback upgrade. I would love it if they could get Trey Lance in the draft. I know Lance is a mobile quarterback, and I know that mobile quarterbacks don't dump off to the running back, but just from an accuracy standpoint, like, Lance is a much better quarterback than Teddy Bridgewater. The offense might actually score a few more touchdowns. So I just need Teddy Bridgewater to get out of there. I just don't like him. Oh, this is a good question. Why don't we answer that?
Yeah. Benjamin on here in the chat. In a one quarterback dynasty, do you think it's important to lock up a top 5 quarterback for the long term, or a serviceable quarterback for a year to year? He throws out Goff and Carr as like serviceable quarterback.
Oh, it's a great question. I don't play a lot of one quarterback dynasty. One quarterback dynasty is kind of going the way of the dinosaur. Superflex is essentially, I would say, is the norm for leagues being created now, even if it's not the total majority based on old leagues. But, there are a lot of old 1 QB leagues. People like playing in them, and there's no good way to change a 1 QB league to Superflex without just disbanding the whole thing. So I understand that we're going to have 1 QB leagues for a while, probably going to be the majority for a while. With that said, I do not like spending high equity on a quarterback in 1 QB league. So I'm probably never going to have a top 5 quarterback. I like to secure my running backs early. I don't want to miss out on running backs. I like to secure maybe an early tight end would be nice. And then if I'm not going to failing those things, I'd like to load up on young receivers. So probably not spending a premium pick on a quarterback. The kind of quarterback I'd be targeting in a 1 QB league would actually be someone like Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts doesn't have the long-term security, but in a 1 QB league, I don't care. Quarterbacks don't carry any trade value. I'm caring about scoring fantasy points. So Jalen Hurts is going to score a lot of fantasy points next year. If he doesn't have a job in 2022, it's easy to trade for a quarterback in a 1 QB league. I'll deal with it in 2022. And then also in a 1 QB league, I'm fine just rolling with guys like Brady or Jameis Winston if he gets a starting job. Like, would have been fine rolling with Drew Brees last year. Like, I just don't care. So the answer to the question is no. I'm Aaron Rodgers, even though he's old, I don't care in a 1 QB league. So the answer is no. I would not be spending premium equity on a quarterback.
And since you brought up Superflex, is a quarterback your 1.01 in Superflex startups?
Yes, he is. Patrick Mahomes is the 101 in any Superflex startup. He's worth about 25% more than any other player or asset in Superflex, more or less.
I assume that's where you would be going with that one.
Yes, that's correct.
Well, let's talk a little bit about some rookies.
Let's talk about it.
Never too early to start talking about rookies. I know that you guys are doing a lot of work on kind of digesting or evaluating who they are and what their skill sets are. And we could probably talk about a rookie every single day, all day long.
Sure. And we do.
Yeah.
We have a YouTube series on that. We have articles on that. I wrote a couple of rookie articles. It's not really my area of expertise. We have my colleagues from the Devi department know way infinitely more about rookies than I've ever known. But yeah, I love rookies too. It's hard for me this year though. This year, it's hard for me.
Let's hear who you have up at the top right now.
Right.
We know we don't know where they're at yet, but who do you have at the top?
So in a 1 QB, I have Najee Harris as my 101 at this time. I expect him to be the first running back drafted in the NFL draft. But like I said, it is difficult for me. It's difficult for me this year because I'm not a college football person. I'm not a Devi guy. I don't play Devi. So the fact that there's no combine is a problem. It's a problem for someone like me who's doing the majority of their rookie process now. So this year, more than any, I'm relying on listening to people in the community that I trust who know this stuff better than I do. I'm like, my area of expertise, as you know, is dynasty strategy. Dynasty strategy, managing the dynasty market, managing your dynasty team, and exploiting ADP player values to create the best value squad you can, in addition to projecting the future in NFL and analyzing the past. That's my bread and butter. What it's not is knowing what prospects are going to be. So the fact that there's no combine, pro days are not what they usually are. There's a lot less information. The 2020 college season was a mess on a lot of levels. It makes it hard for someone like me. I have to do a lot more listening than I did in the past. But, luckily I do a lot of that. So I can bring that knowledge to my followers. with that, I have Najee Harris as my 101.
Well, I know you mentioned you've got a couple articles on rookies, and one of them was on Trevor Lawrence, and we have a question here about Trevor Lawrence. Essentially, maybe not being the consensus number one overall pick.
Who's saying that?
After being the prospect, I'm not saying this. I would believe he's number one
nonsense.
Easy, right?
It's nonsense. Who's saying that?
He's number one. Who's
saying that? Where is this nonsense coming from? Because no, this is ridiculous. Yes, he's the consensus number one pick. People are saying that they just want attention. They want clicks. You know, we know who these people are. The Skip Baylesses of the world. We know who they are. Colin Cowherd. They just want attention. They don't care if they're accurate. They just want attention. They just want people to listen to them so they can get Chris Sims. Chris Sims. Chris Sims, I have a little bit more respect for. He actually has some. I actually listened to Chris Sims. He actually has some decent something, not just saying whatever he feels like at the time behind his process. But
whatever's going to stir it up.
Yeah. What I'm saying is, no, Trevor Lawrence is going to be the number one pick. And there are some people in the Dynasty community that say that they have Justin Fields as their quarterback one. And let's just say I disagree. I disagree with those people. I think that those people are out of their minds. I don't see, yes, that's true. I see in the chat, Chris Sims doesn't focus on fantasy. That's correct. Chris Sims is an NFL analyst, so fantasy is not his thing. But anyway, yes, there are some people in the Dynasty community, if you look on Twitter, that are saying things like Justin Fields is the quarterback one in this class. Justin Fields is not the quarterback one in this class. Please don't do that. Don't make that mistake. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to talk you out of doing dumb shit. Don't do that. Trevor Lawrence is the QB1 in this class. He's been the QB1 in this class since the middle of 2018. He's going to be the number one overall draft pick. I think he's going to have a very long and successful NFL career. He does everything well. I don't need to be a tape grinder to tell you he does everything well. Just look at his track record in college. He won. He kept winning. He makes all the throws. He has the perfect physique. And also on top of that, he's an underrated runner. Look at him as a runner. He scored 9 rushing touchdowns as a sophomore and 8 as a junior. He can add that Konami code that we're looking for in the NFL. Not to a Kyler Murray level, but could he duplicate, what Aaron Rodgers did throughout his career, or Patrick Mahomes? I think he can exceed Mahomes, but not Mahomes as a passer, but exceed Mahomes as rushing production. And can he provide what Aaron Rodgers provided on the ground at times earlier in his career, or even greater than that? Of course he can. He's more athletic. So I think that people telling you that you should take Fields over Lawrence need to reevaluate, because I don't see it.
Well, I'm in a 16 team one quarterback league. We went one quarterback when we started it up, just because knowing 16 teams, and that we went super flex at the time. The conversation was, could it be a little bit scarce with the quarterbacks out there? So with that one quarterback league, I need to know, since you came on the Rumbles of Red, how early would you take Lawrence?
Well, does have more value in a 16-team league because there's a little bit more quarterback scarcity. Looking at my board, in a normal one quarterback 12-team league, I have Lawrence at the 110. Might move him up a spot or two to the 109 or 108, probably around there. I'm not moving him ahead of Harris, Chase, Etienne, Devonta Smith, Javonte Williams, Bateman, Pitts. I'd all have ahead of him. I'd consider him compared to someone like Rondale Moore. Maybe I'd move him ahead of Jalen Waddle. It's probably where I'd have him, 8 or 9.
Yeah, and I believe it just in our own Dynasty. If I was thinking back to last year, I think Burrow went 12 or 13. So I would assume Lawrence will go before where Burrow was going last year. So I'm just thinking, he'll probably go around that same range, even in our own Dynasty league there. You had mentioned Harris being 1.01. I'm looking for running backs. I have the 1.03 and 04 in this league. And Harris is gone. You've got whoever has 1.01 already took him. I did a lot of trading to aim for 2021. I see like you're confused how I get both.
Trades are good.
But so do you think there's another running back out there? That's what I'm trying to get at. Is there another running back out there that's worth that top 5 pick if Harris is already gone at 1.01?
I mean, yeah, Travis Etienne and Javonte Williams, who I just wrote about today, they could be worth that top pick, but those are the only 3. There's a steep drop-off in this class after those top 3. It reminds me a lot of the 2019 class. We knew for a long time that Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders, and David Montgomery, for about the 2 months before the draft, we knew those were the top 3. Nobody else could contend for those spots. That's what it is this year. Harris, Etienne, Javonte Williams, those are the top 3. Nobody's breaking in there. Those are going to be the top 3 post-NFL draft. I'm very, very confident. Doesn't matter.
You don't think there will be a guy like Clyde last year who landed with the Chiefs and then jumped up the boards?
I do not, because the talent gap between the RB3 and the RB4 in this class is absolutely massive. It's like the 2019 class where there were 3 guys that were so much better than everyone else.
Yeah.
And if you look back at the 2019 class, we were right. Those are the 3 best players. Jacobs, Sanders, Montgomery. Name me another good back from that class. There aren't any. They're right. I mean, I'm not forgetting anyone. I mean, the other guys taken after them were guys like Henderson, Singletary, Harris. They didn't hit.
No, so, guys who are in the league and you hear their names every once in a while, but they're not.
Yeah,
guys that you're relying on week to week.
We had it exactly right. There were 3 good running backs in that class. You could say Montgomery is not the best running back of all time, but he was an RB1 last year. That's a hit.
Oh, yeah.
If you get an RB1 season out of your first round pick, that's a hit. That's a success. So like there were 3 successful running backs in that class, and basically everyone else was a failure. So we had it right. That's what this year is. There are 3 good running backs in that class. And if you get a few startable games out of anyone else, call it a success.
Yeah. Well, it's good. Maybe I'll just take both of them then. I'll be set at running back.
I would think that that's probably going to be your best move. I mean, I expect Jamar Chase to be the clear 102, and then you'll be able to take, you said you had 3 and 4, so you'll be able to take Etienne and Javonte Williams at 3 and 4, or you could take whichever one you like better. Maybe there's a receiver that you like. You never know. Something like Devonta Smith could go 5 overall to the Bengals. That, I don't know. If he went that high, and Javonte Williams goes in the late 2nd round, I'm probably taking Devonta Smith. Going to the Bengals with the 5th overall pick with that draft capital over a question mark running back in the late 2nd. So, don't lock yourself into anything just yet. But you'll be able to get a running back with those picks. There's going to be a 2nd running back in this class that you want. Or you get Chase. I think Chase is a great wide receiver prospect. So if he falls to you at 3, consider yourself lucky.
Absolutely. I was talking the other day. Somebody asked me what I was in a different draft. I had traded for the 1.02, and they asked me who I was aiming for, and Chase was the guy I threw out in that league. I don't need running backs in that league, so
it's got to be. Doesn't matter what you need. Draft for value, trade for need. As my friend Dynasty Outhouse always says, it's always draft for value, trade for need. But yes, Jamar Chase at 19 years old outproduced the current top 3 dynasty wide receiver in Justin Jefferson. Jamar Chase was 19 when he put up that historic season.
Yeah.
19. Devonta Smith didn't really produce anything significant until his 3rd season when he was, I believe, 20. Or 20, turned 21 during that season. So, if you look at breakout age, it's not a competition. There is one contender for wide receiver 1 in this class. It's Jamar Chase. Nobody else. It's not close. So anyone telling you otherwise, again, they're either hunting for clicks or they have it wrong, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I know we're pushing time, but I got 2 quarterbacks I want to ask you about before we get out of here. We'll get off the rookie talk. And these are guys who are rumored, and we kind of hinted at them earlier when we were talking free agents, but these are the rumor mill quarterbacks. Starting with Russell Wilson, I saw Diana Rossini tweeted earlier today, actually, about Seattle's answering the phone call, right? So not
whatever that means.
They're answering the call.
Answering the call.
Do you anticipate Russ going anywhere this offseason?
I don't. I think that they're going to get this worked out, at least for this season. I do think that Russell Wilson is not going to complete his career in Seattle. I think, but this is not on the level of the Deshaun Watson situation. I think that Deshaun Watson is a different situation. Russell Wilson, I think that they're going to come to some sort of understanding this offseason and play it out. But I do think that he is going to end his career on a different team. And it's going to be one of the 4 teams he mentioned. I think a lot of the problem is that those 4 teams can't accept him right now. I do have one scenario that I think is quite likely that I just thought of this moment, but it's actually perfect. What if Dallas tags Dak this year and then next year just lets Dak walk after trading for Russell Wilson to start in 2022? What about that? I just thought of it right now off the top of my head, but I like that scenario. Just isn't. I think Russell Wilson would love to play for the Cowboys. I think he wants that kind of attention.
From Dak's standpoint, coming off the injury, it could give him an opportunity to go back out there and show other teams like, hey, I still got it. The injury is not going to affect me.
Well,
now come pay me if that works out that way.
It's not just that. Imagine a quarterback of Dak's caliber hitting the free agent market, being an unrestricted free agent. That has never happened.
Ed's on board. He's
never happened. So yes, I see Russell Wilson being the Seattle starting quarterback this year. If we're just looking at this year, I see him being the starter this year. I don't see that trade occurring.
And then of course the other guy is Watson. I think he's got there's a much higher chance he does move on, or the team moves on from a guy like Deshaun Watson. Who do you think that he'll be a Houston Texan next year?
I don't. I think that Watson does not care about returning to play for the Texans. I think he's done playing for the Texans. I think that he will not return if he returns, it'll be like in week 9 and it'll be very inconvenient. He'll be like, yeah, I'm showing up. No, that extra practice. Nah, I'm not going to that. Workouts with receivers. Nah, no. You don't pay me to do that. No, I'm not doing that. Extra, activities with the team. Nah, I'm busy that day. So I think that they're going to see quickly that it's going to be very unpleasant. I expect this situation to end badly. Yeah. And I don't know what's going to happen, but I think it's going to be a disaster. If you're doing a best ball draft right now, I would caution you against drafting Deshaun Watson. I think he's going to sit out games at the beginning of the year if they don't trade him. In Dynasty, I wouldn't worry as much because you have the next 10, 15 years of his career. It's not as big of a deal. But if you're doing a best ball draft, I would caution against drafting Deshaun Watson.
Do you think in Dynasty, not his value, but do you think his perceived value has dropped a little bit to where he's a little cheaper on the market in Dynasty leagues?
I do. I think that I just said that I think that there's a realistic chance that he misses games in 2021. Yeah. And if you're a contending Dynasty team and you're in a Superflex league, Watson sitting on your bench doesn't help you. He's not scoring any points there. So that would be a problem. So you could probably, at some point, Watson was my QB2 overall. Now I've dropped him all the way down to QB5. It's not a big drop. I still have him as a first-round startup pick, but, I think that if you wanted to trade Deshaun Watson, it's probably not a good time to trade him because his value is low. Yeah. But if you want to buy him on the cheap, maybe there were deals that are possible now that weren't possible before. Maybe you could trade Joe Burrow plus a small piece to get to Deshaun Watson, whereas previously those two were far apart in value.
Yeah.
It is a buying opportunity, and his value would go back up the second he goes anywhere else. I don't think it matters. I think the landing spot is irrelevant to me. I think his value would go immediately back up the second he left, regardless of landing spot.
Yeah. He's a great quarterback. Tyler, again, thank you for joining us tonight. Why don't you go ahead and tell everybody one more time where they can find you, where they can find your writing, where they can hear you on other podcasts.
Sure. So you can find all of my writing at Dynasty League Football. It's all there. My author link is in my Twitter profile at DLF_Karp. You can see it on the screen. It's the link there. So just click on that link. You'll see all my articles. And I also started a new podcast called The Dynasty Duo with CJ Krause at Kid Flash FF. He's great. He's a genius. I love recording with him. We just dropped our second episode today. And you can find the link to that in my Twitter bio. Dynasty Duo FF, The Dynasty Duo, at The Dynasty Duo FF on Twitter. And then we have that on all major streaming platforms. iTunes, we're working on it. Some people are saying that you can listen to it there. Other people, not so sure. But we will have that ironed out. We've only done 2 shows. We're just working out the issue, working out all these issues. We're committed to this podcast for the long run. So, just bear with us while we work out any technical difficulties at the beginning. But I've had a great time recording the first 2 shows. And other than my podcast and my writing, you can find me just on Twitter. I answer Dynasty questions from time to time. I have a Patreon. I rarely plug it. You can buy my Dynasty rankings spreadsheet. It's I actually have patreon.com/fantasy advice. Someone was like, how the hell did you get that? How is that available?
How does nobody else have it?
How does no one else have that? Yeah. Apparently it was available like a year ago when I reserved it. So I have patreon.com/fantasy advice. You can check me out on there. You can also buy me to just walk you through running your Dynasty teams. I don't promote it too much, especially since I've started at DLF. I've limited the number of people who can sign up for that. I can't manage everyone's Dynasty team in the world, but there's a few spots left, and I'm sure they'll get filled soon. But I'll think of something creative to do. I don't want to price gouge people, because I know that for me to really make it worth it for me to do it, I probably have to charge 3 times as much for that. I don't really want to do that. So I'll have to find another way. But, I have an option to if you just like me and want to support me, you can just donate me $1 a month. Not saying anyone has to, but that's an option. And then $3 a month is the cost for my ranking spreadsheet. And that I try to update that whenever I can. And I'm going to add my rookie rankings on there soon enough. I just want to be confident in them. Like I said to you earlier, the rookie process has been more difficult for the not hardcore Debian college leaguers like me this year. So I don't want to put anything out there if I'm not confident in it. So I'm just finalizing those before I add those to my offering on Patreon. I think that's everything. Yeah. Awesome. I mean, really, if you just interact with me on Twitter, I'm there all the time. If you just tag me, I'm much more likely to answer. If you tag me with 20 other people, I'm probably muting it immediately. And then maybe if I get back around to it later, I'll answer it. But I can get buried in 100 spot of notifications very fast that way. So if you just go post in one of my old threads, and I'll always respond. I'll find it, believe me. But if you tag me, sometimes I miss things. I'm sorry. A lot of people do that. So I'm not ignoring you. I'm trying to get to everyone, but sometimes I just get buried in 100 notifications and then I forget to come back to it. So it's never personal. I'll always get to that. I think that's one other thing. If you ever have industry questions, that's what my DMs are open for. My DMs are not open to ask me, do I start this player or this player? Don't send me those questions in my DMs. I do threads for that. But if you have a question of how I got started in the industry, or how you can, what can I do better? I read people's writing samples. Sometimes I listen to people's podcast samples. I'm willing to work with people because, it's all about supporting each other. So if that's something that ever interests you, just shoot me a DM. I promise I'm not scary. And I'll take a look at your work. I always want to support those up and coming creators.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I was going to say, I have not had any issues on iTunes. I've listened to, I think I got through the first episode of your guys' Dynasty Duo. So I didn't have any issues on iTunes. Hopefully nobody else is either.
I'm glad to hear that. Apparently, they said apparently it was not available, but then I'm hearing now people are listening to it. So I'm glad to hear that it's working for you. But we sent an email to iTunes. Apple can take a while to get back to you, but I promise by episode 3 or 4, this will all be completely sorted. And I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad you listened.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was an interesting first episode. I surprisingly haven't done as many podcasts as people might think, even though I know I seem relatively polished. That's just because I don't get nervous. So
yeah,
not that extreme.
Well, I did link that as well in the description. So go into the description. You can find the Dynasty Duo, a link to their Apple. I think I linked the Apple podcast one. And you can also find Tyler on Twitter at DLF_Karp. You can find me on Twitter at Trev's Fantasy Pod. I'm also on Apple, Spotify, Google. Follow me. And I'll be back Sunday, March 14th with another industry writer. You're not going to want to miss that one either. LaQuan Jones comes on and talks some fantasy football with me.
Love that.
So super pumped for that as well. Tyler, thanks for joining me. Chat, thanks for all your great questions. And all
we love you,
comments.
Chat.
Absolutely. That makes it so much more fun.
Give Trevor a follow. He's definitely has to get more follows.
We're gonna get
hopefully
there.
You got a few from my my tweet about the show, but
absolutely.
If you ever need anything, just send me a quick DM. I'll see if we can work together again.
Appreciate that, Tyler. Thanks for jumping on. If you would hit the like button on the way out, we will see you next time.
Peace.